Good morning. Happy Friday. I am so excited to be here with you today. Today, we are diving deep into the potential reasons, the potential blocks that might be getting in your way of receiving deep, satisfying spiritual intimacy. So I think this is the kind of intimacy that most people crave, especially women, but I believe men really crave this and want it as well. And it's something that can be so elusive, especially if you've been in a relationship for a very long time, or maybe you've been dating and you just really haven't found the person that you can have that deep intimacy with. So I want to explore a little bit about, some of the reasons that these blocks could be coming up for you. Like I said, for many people, it's just because they haven't found the right partner yet. But what does that really mean? What is it about the partners that they are attracting that is not allowing them to drop into that deep spiritual intimacy? So we're going to go deep into that today. And then for other people, it's really being vulnerable enough to get to that level of deep spiritual intimacy is very scary, very scary. And it can really hinder, that level of intimacy that you're desiring, that you're craving, that your heart is really calling out for. Some of us have been through sexual trauma, sexual abuse. It's estimated that 1 in 3 women have been through some kind of rape or incest or trauma or abuse at some point in their life. And in my experience in working with women for over 20 years, I would say it's probably more like 3 in 5, not just 1 in 3, but we're probably more like a third of the way. And then men, it's also 1 in 4 is the estimation that have been through some kind of sexual abuse or sexual trauma at some point in their lives. So this creates a deep lack of trust in your own body, as well as the other people that you might be having intimacy with in your life. So, that's what I want to go deep in today, is sort of that trust element. But before I go into that, I want to just kind of cover all the myriad of reasons of why you might be feeling blocked to getting that intimacy that you desire. Spirituality is definitely one reason. So religious guilt, religious upbringing definitely can play a part in that. I do tend to attract a lot of women who were born and raised into a Catholic religion and a Catholic society or a Christian. And I myself was raised in that Catholic way. And so overcoming that sense of guilt, that sense of shame, that really deeply seated, embedded message that those religions bring in regards to sexuality can take some doing. It can take some, it's a very layered process, and the more layers you take off, the closer you get to be to just really owning your sexual sovereignty, owning what feels good to you. No excuses, no apologies, no doubt, no guilt, no shame. So it is definitely possible, and I am living proof of that, as well as many of the women that I've worked with. Other things that could come up spiritually is just this belief that, sex is not a spiritual act, that it's a dirty or bad act. And so that can definitely play a part as well. So we're going to go a lot deeper into each one of these categories when we run the 5-day workshop series, which is called Magnetize Your Beloved. So there will be a link below for you to register for that. So we're going to go much deeper into the spiritual category, because there's a lot more that could show up as potential blocks to why you might not be getting that intimacy that you desire. But I've given you a couple. The next one is physical. There could be a physical block, like literally there could be something wrong in your yoni or wrong with your lingam. There could be Bartholin gland cysts. There could be, hormonal disorders. There could be a lack of testosterone in your bloodstream. There could be, low libido issues. So we're going to look much deeper into all those physical issues that could be coming up for women. All kinds of things can come up around hormonal imbalances, and also, cysts can form, fibroids can form, all these things that can make you feel less whole than you actually are. So I'm here to advocate. I'm here to help you get to that place of absolute wholeness and fullness. So if that sounds interesting to you, if that sounds like something that you are ready for in your life, write it in the chat box. Let me know. The next sort of category that we're going to be going much deeper into at that 5-day workshop series is the emotional aspect. So emotions around sexuality, I mean, collectively, we know it's very taboo and it's not very talked about, although these days it's a lot more talked about. But there's still a lot of emotional, old paradigm kind of stuff going on around sexuality. There's a lot of emotional attachment that can happen if you do have sex. And so really understanding, like, what is your emotional relationship to your own sexuality is a huge piece of the puzzle. And that's going to allow you to trust yourself with another person and know where your boundaries lie. So the last category that I'm going to be covering more in depth at Magnetize Your Beloved is the psychological category. I'm going to go a little bit deeper into that one today, but the psychological, so it seems a little bit close to the emotional, and it can be. Also, can relate to hormones. It all ties together. They're all related to one another. But the psychological is more around like the pattern, the protective pattern that you acquired at some point early on in life that you have been playing out throughout your life, and it really shows up in intimacy. I mean, there's no better mirror for you to look at your patterns around protecting yourself and blocking beautiful things off from life than in that intimate relationship. So, here's how it goes is when we're in utero, sometimes things happen with our parents, maybe our father gets sick, our mom is really depressed or something. All that stuff translates to the fetus when it's in utero. And then, you're born and you go through those first years of life. So anywhere between the ages of 0, being in the uterus, all the way to age 7, 8, 9, is sort of your developmental pathways, and each one of your chakras are going to develop as you grow and as you age through those years. And at one point or another, we all experience a trauma, or it might not show up as an actual trauma. It could be more like, oh, my parents just aren't giving me what I need at this point in my life. And so, and it's normal, it's common, we all have it, like we all go through it. It doesn't mean that our parents are bad parents or anything like that. It just means that we're human. And so at one point or another, you develop a protective mechanism for how to be safe in the world with what it is that you're dealing with. So the one that I want to talk about a little bit more today is the one who, this pattern develops around age 5, 6, 7. And, if you have kids or if you've seen a 5-year-old, they are asserting themselves. They are stepping into their own ego and their own self. And this is who I am. And this is what I want. This is my desire. So it becomes more about them at that point. And, at that age, that can be a lot for parents, but that 5-year-old still needs a container, still needs a parent who is bigger than them and can still keep them contained, but let them start to explore their autonomy. And this is the age that that the pattern that comes in. So if that child doesn't have a container that's bigger than them, Then the protective pattern, I like to call them original wound patterns. The protective or original wound pattern that comes in is the one that doesn't trust. Doesn't feel like they can trust that there's something bigger than themselves to hold them. Therefore, they have to do it themselves. So this is the person, and you all know people like this, they feel like nobody's going to do it for them. They have to do it all themselves. If they try to allow someone else to do it for them, they'll do it wrong. It's very difficult for them to drop into vulnerability. That's considered a weakness for someone who runs this protective pattern. And one thing I just want to pause and say about these protective patterns is that it's not who you are. It's not even the propensity of what you might go into. It's basically a reaction. So it's when you go into an unconscious state, and it's how you react from that unconscious state. So all of the Taoist sexual practices, everything that I teach, everything that I offer, hormones, getting them in balance, all the spiritual practices, they are all in the name of living outside of pattern. So that's really the most that you can go for, is really living outside of your pattern. I mean, you can go for more than that, of course, but that's the initial step, is how many minutes of your day can you spend outside of an unconscious or a triggered or a regressive state. So all these practices are for that. Let's talk a little bit about this one who runs the pattern where it's difficult for them to trust. It's almost like, so what they'll do in these patterns is they will attract people that they know they can't trust. And that will affirm for them that they can't trust people in the world. And so it's very challenging for them to go into a vulnerable place where true intimacy is created, especially on that deep spiritual level. Because it's a weakness. It's considered a weakness for them. So to take care of everything, to take control, to hold the reins is what they're accustomed to doing. And if they're living in pattern, that's what they're gonna continue to create and go for. So they're going to attract not only intimate partners that they can't trust, but business partners, all kinds of people in their life that they won't be able to trust. And, one of the things that when I'm working with these people, they're fun to work with. Also a bit of a challenge for me with the pattern that I run, which is a different one. But, one of the most important things that we have to set up for them is boundaries. So boundaries need to be in place. I find this a lot. And leaky boundaries, not having strong boundaries, this can play out in any of the 5 pattern types, but definitely it plays out quite a bit with this one who has a real need to be able to trust people, to be able to feel safe with people. So, leaky boundaries can come from a place of like guilt, like, I'm going to let that person walk all over me because I feel bad. I don't want them to feel uncomfortable. It could also come from a place of like taking on other people's emotions. Oh, they're having such a hard time. I'm going to put my difficulties aside and I'm going to take on theirs. And I'm just going to really cater to them and heal them. So anyone who has these poor boundaries is going to really attract people who push their boundaries until they get very good at holding boundaries. And then they will no longer attract people who push through their boundaries. So this is definitely a huge thing to look at. Good fences make good neighbors. And, this person who struggles with trust in their life, in their partnerships, in their relationships, really need to create that good fence so that they know where they stand. That's going to allow other people to know where they stand as well. And it goes both ways. So if you do run this pattern where trust is challenging and difficult, then you want to also have the person that you are working with, your partner, your intimate lover, your business partner, whoever it is that you're having as a reflection in your life, you want them to hold strong boundaries for you as well. Because the stronger they hold their boundaries, the bigger the container they create. And that's what was missing for you when that original wound came up. So, it's just amazing. It's incredible to me, the human just dynamic system that we are, and the myriad of ways that we can heal. There's so many levels and layers to our healing and to becoming whole, and they have to kind of all be happening at the same time in order to really, for you to express into that person who can have that deep spiritual intimacy, that person who can have the abundance in every sector of your life. The sovereign one, the king and the queen, the one who is really in the light of your own life. So sending you all tons of love today, and register for Magnetize Your Beloved, because there's going to be so much incredible fun and info in that 5-day workshop series. Sending you tons of love, and I'll see you soon. Namaste.